Welcome to Caregiver Cast with Mary Elaine Petrucci. Are you overwhelmed raising a family, working full-time, caring for a parent or grandparent? It can be challenging when you're doing it alone. Caregiver Cast helps busy, burned-out professionals reduce their stress and overwhelm to create a better caregiving experience for themselves and their loved one. Caregiver Cast brings caregivers together with experts who provide information in a variety of areas. In each episode, you'll get tips on topics such as finance, legal, medical, self-care, community resources, mindset, and more. We're here to make your caregiving journey a more rewarding one. Acquire the confidence and skills to be a more capable caregiver by implementing the resources and strategies from these expert thought leaders. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. And now here's your host, Mary Elaine Petrucci.
Welcome to Caregiver Cast. I'm Mary Elaine Petrucci, your host. My special guest today is Jeff Kay, who will be talking about echoes across time, preserving the past, and inspiring the future. Before I formally introduce Jeff, I would like to give you some background information about him. After witnessing my grandmother having a heart attack and passing away on the steps of a synagogue when I was 7, I remember my parents explaining death to me. I didn't truly understand the concept at the time, but I did know that I would never see her again in my lifetime. At some point after that, I began saving random birthday cards and other cards from loved ones as keepsakes. After my parents passed away, my sister and I were clearing out their house, and I became across a box, and the contents completely took me by surprise. The box contained various keepsakes of my past to when I was born, such as birthday cards from various ages, report cards, the first Valentine's Day picture I drew, the bronze shoes, baby pictures, school pictures, tapes, slides, photo albums, film, etc. And this overwhelmed me with emotion. As he was absorbing all these emotional memories, he realized that he had no way to watch any of the media. He did have an idea in his 20s about visual storytelling, but knew there are many companies doing it. There was a quote in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that really resonated with him. Dean Charles Stanforth, "Seems we've reached an age where life stops giving you things and started taking them away. This is why I feel legacies are so important." Welcome to Caregiver Cast. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much.
That's great. So, was it at the time that at your grandmother's passing, or was it later when you were going through your family photos and VHS tapes? What moment inspired you to become passionate about preserving and protecting memories?
I have to say it was my grandmother's passing. It
Okay.
struck me quite hard, I mean, I still close my eyes and visualize it to this day.
Wow.
It sticks with me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very traumatic moment in my life. So that's when I started to collect memorabilia to remind me of my loved ones and keepsakes.
Well, I feel like that is so important. It's I've started doing that, I guess, in my 20s or so.
Mhm.
Keeping like letters from people,
Mhm.
grandmother or my aunt, for example, because I knew, I guess on some level, I want to have them in the future. So I appreciate what you're doing. How did discovering the box of keepsakes from your childhood impact you emotionally?
Well, for starters, it was never something I expected.
Mm,
And I found it ironic that I had no recollection, I had no idea my mom was saving cards as well as me.
okay.
So
Mm.
that was just pure coincidence, happenstance, or however you'd like to interpret it. But I have birthday cards going actually back to the day I was born.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
and some of them were signed by parents of children of people I still know today that are still friends.
Mm,
So I have childhood friends going back many years.
wow. I did find a box of memorabilia that my parents kept for my brother and myself, so I can appreciate finding those little things and knowing that it made such an impact for them that they kept those memories alive. So, how do you, or why do you believe that legacies are important, especially in a society where we often prioritize fleeting moments over meaningful ones? Great question.
Well, from my perspective, everybody you meet, every occurrence that you have
Mhm.
impacts you in some way, whether it's fleeting, whether it's a brief conversation, whether it all stimulates you, it all becomes part of you. It's all and they really make you think. Or as I have my podcast called Echoes Across Time,
Mhm.
they're inspirational. They might be a story that you've passed down from generation to generation. Or it might be something that you want to tell friends and family in the future
Mhm.
that they're too young to appreciate now. So that's why I really feel that whether it's a moment such as the one that inspired me and my grandmother passing away,
Mhm.
or which was so traumatic, or even just maybe a dream,
Mm, okay.
and just seeing your loved one for a brief moment in a dream, you're still sparking a connection.
Wow, I love that. Even a dream can spark that memory. I love it. I think it's so important to have memories in addition to just the photos that you can go back and reminisce with. So thank you for sharing that
Oh, thank you.
with them.
Because one of the things that I came across in my parents' house that I found really interesting, and I'll just say it. This is my experience that we came across photo albums. We came across 20 photo albums, and and I found it ironic that they waited to take all these trips. They bought every piece of photography equipment imaginable.
Mhm.
Then back in the day, you had to drive to your photomat or wherever you got your pictures developed, and you'll take 2 of these, 3 of these. Then you buy the photo album, you put everything in, et cetera, et cetera. And then after that, it goes into a drawer.
Correct.
And I'm like, it's such a special occasion.
Mhm.
And why isn't that occasion celebrated? because the next occasion you're looking for is the next vacation, but you really haven't taken the time to enjoy the previous vacation.
Wow, I never thought of it that way, but I think you're right. You experience it, the vacation in the moment,
Right.
and you take all the photos. However, you don't really necessarily go back and look at those photos until many years later.
Or in my case, after your parents died, so a
Right.
generation later. So at that point in time, I created a company called My Digital Memories, because as you may or may not know, photographs and media last about 15 to 20 years in a climate controlled environment. So I started to digitize all of our memories. So they're in one place, and my sister can look at them, I can look at them, our kids can look at them and enjoy them. So it keeps moments alive.
That's awesome, especially if children in the next generation don't remember their grandparents or never had the opportunity to meet them. They can see pictures and let their minds kind of wander about who they could have possibly been like, in addition to the stories that you share with them.
Absolutely. And right now we live in an age where you see ancestry.com, 23andMe, and I think people are incredibly interested in connecting with their past to see where they come from, where they may have gotten their talents or abilities or their genealogy. After my parents died, I came across a photo in my grandfather's wallet. Photo was about the size of a postage stamp, taken back in around the 1890s, of his mother. And I was looking at his mother's profile picture and my mom's profile picture. And you can actually see the genes being passed down from generation to generation.
How powerful.
And it's fascinating.
I have a cousin that I really don't know that well, or haven't really known him. And he is having someone go back and research that side of the family. And I appreciate getting updates from the person that's helping him with his genealogical search, because the Italian side of my family hasn't been really researched that much, and knowing more about them makes me feel more connected to them. So I appreciate what you're saying. And then about 4 years ago, I have a cousin who has gone back to Croatia to meet family for about 40 years. And then her sister and I were able to go back with her about 4 years ago. And it was amazing to meet family with family that I knew. So it was an incredible adventure just to make those connections and keep them alive. So I appreciate your efforts in digitizing everything so that people can have easier access to them.
And it even goes beyond that. Because when I was doing my genealogy, I've only gone back to the 1870s on both sides of the family. Everybody owned their own business. They were all entrepreneurs.
Wow.
And after I approached my dad in my 20s to come up with my digitizing idea, I found it ironic that he's like, "Oh, sounds great. Go get a job." So I spent 20 years in corporate, but it never really resonated with me.
Mm,
It wasn't until after I did the genealogy and learned how everybody in my family was entrepreneurial as to why I really didn't fit.
mm. Okay. Makes sense.
So I guess it was in my genes, so to speak.
Yes. Definitely. So what are some of the most unique or unexpected items you've come across when helping families preserve their memories?
The most unique one or inspirational one that I've come across, a lady brought me a 8mm film that was shot in Vietnam.
Mm,
At the time, she was a baby. Her dad was MIA in Vietnam,
wow.
and she ended up getting this film. And so I digitized the film, and
Mm.
after 60 years, she was able to see and hear her father's voice for the very first time.
Oh my goodness, how powerful.
It
Wow.
brought tears to her eyes.
Mm, that must have been an incredible moment to actually hear her father's
Mhm.
voice.
See him, hear him, and
See him, hear him. Yes, exactly.
yeah.
I appreciate even more now why it's so important to preserve these family memories. So
Well,
go ahead.
one of the other things that I do is I'm a reminiscence therapy consultant. So
Yeah.
I help people with dementia and Alzheimer's,
Mm,
because if you digitize their old media,
mm-hmm.
it may give them maybe 5 minutes or so or more of
Mm,
clarity with their loved ones.
wow. I wish I would have known this because my mother had Alzheimer's. Oh,
I'm
wow.
so sorry.
Yeah. So I can see where the field of visual storytelling is so important and how it's evolved over time. So what technologies or approaches are you excited about in terms of visual storytelling?
Technologies, things have evolved, are continuing to evolve very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone from DVDs to streaming to cloud storage.
Right.
I do all of it, but the one that strikes me is I now have the capability to store items up to 300 years. So you
Mm,
can literally create a time capsule that is that's geotagged. It's put into international database,
mm,
and if you wanted to, you could put it in on Mars. It's the same technology that Elon Musk uses, or drop it in the middle of the ocean to let your future loved ones have an Indiana Jones type adventure to
right.
their treasure.
Oh, I love that idea. Let's just go on a treasure hunt and
Yeah.
find all these great memories from our past.
Oh yeah.
I love it. You touched on it, but how can reminiscence therapy help individuals suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's, or other memory related disorders? You've touched on it, but can you go into more detail?
Sure. I don't know if you know that Tony Bennett has Alzheimer's,
Mm,
a severe case of Alzheimer's.
wow.
He can't remember anything. But if you play one of his songs,
Right. Yes.
he knows every single word.
Yeah, right. I've seen that with Lady Gaga as well.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's amazing how he could come out.
Yeah.
Warm. Wow.
Yeah. So
Mm.
they're just emotional ties that are just so strong that give people clarity. Yeah, I don't know if it varies by person, but it could last for 5 minutes a day or whatever. But for loved ones to have even 5 minutes of worth of clarity is priceless.
I would agree. Wow. Thank you for bringing up that example of Tony Bennett, because I think that I remember watching some of the of his performances with Lady Gaga on YouTube, and it's just so powerful that he can really get into the moment and really do what he loves best. And it's really, really powerful. It's just awesome that one specific thing like music can have such a profound effect on someone.
Oh, it's extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're just scratching the surface of what may help Alzheimer patients.
Mm-hmm.
We might understand potentially why it happens, but I don't know that the technology exists yet as to the connection between the music and the memories and what triggers potential clarity. So as technology evolves, I'm looking forward to learning more.
Definitely. As a speech pathologist, when I was working with some clients with memory problems or Alzheimer's, for example, I would create like a memory book of their life, and it would have been much more powerful if the family could have provided me with pictures to go along with it, so that they could not only recall different parts of their life, but would have pictures attached to it that would have brought back, like you said, more clarity. So yes, doing the memory books was great. It would have been much better with pictures.
Yeah, I work with video.
Okay.
So where I do like if somebody brings me, say, if they don't have Alzheimer's and they just bring me a bunch of videos or pictures rather, I'll create a video out of it with the special effects and slides and titles and all that good stuff. But if you have Alzheimer's, you really don't need all that. All that creates a distraction.
Yes.
So I end up for a transition putting in about maybe 30 seconds in between pictures so the family can speak to them about it and give them time to explain it.
Great idea. Awesome. I appreciate that from a speech pathology point of view as well. So thank you for doing that. What advice do you have for families who are just starting to think about preserving their memories and creating a legacy for future generations?
What advice do I have? One, it's never too late to start. Even the smallest, and there are no rules set. There's no boundaries. So nothing has to be done in a certain way. You can do it what's comfortable for you, how you want to categorize it, organize it. It could be done by birthday, by event, by however you see fit. But I encourage you to use your creativity, because there is certainly no right way, no wrong way Because just capturing anything for the future to give people just a glimpse of your life or the experiences, lessons learned, traditions that you have or experienced can inspire your loved ones in the future.
I love that. You can just start where you're at and
Oh, absolutely.
either go forward or back to the past. You have like so many choices. So I love the idea of not getting so overwhelmed that you can just start with the now.
Well, I mean, you can start with the now, or if, like I mentioned, you're into genealogy, I'm into genealogy. You can go back as far as you want, then bring in the present.
Okay, right.
Then, as I mentioned, I can take you into 300 years into the future.
Wow, that's pretty thought-provoking. Wow.
So you can literally have the past, the present, and send it into the future. So,
Thank you.
or if you want to have a interview, the interview can be time coded. So loved one in the future can ask you the question and you'll answer it.
I've kind of seen that at some museum exhibitions. It just seems a bit sci-fi, for the lack of it. I mean, yeah, it was pretty amazing how you could ask someone in the past a question and they could answer it for you. So, yeah. So how do you balance respecting somebody's privacy while still honoring their memory when creating a visual story?
When I work with my clients, it's up to them how much they want me to know, how much they want to share.
Okay.
It could be something that maybe you just want to hire me to just digitize your photos, and you want to take care of the rest, which is fine. Or digitize your slides or paper or movies or whatever. That's something that I can put together, or that's something that you can put together. But I often find that it's easier to put things all in one place.
Yes, I would agree.
Because I find nowadays, people might have boxes of VHS tapes here. You've got pictures on your phone. You've got slides, pictures, and albums in a drawer. I mean, stuff is just kind of all over the place. So all of it's important. And I do have, if people are interested, I do have a presentation that I'm willing to share that allows people to walk through it step by step if they want to actually do it themselves.
Oh, nice. For me, I appreciate that offer, because if people don't want to share,
then they don't have to.
reason, then they can do that on their own. For me personally, I would rather have someone like you do it for me. Because just the effort it takes just to get the pictures together. And then to figure out when things happened, you're left to guess most of the time. So unless,
actually not necessarily. Because in some cases, people might write on the back of the pictures.
Right, that's
I
true.
can capture, I capture that. But then depending upon the way the picture is cut, that leads to a different time frame.
Oh,
Depending upon the code on the back of the picture when it was developed, that leads you to a different time frame. Or the cars in the picture, or the dress in the picture, or the clothes. You're not going to be able to narrow it down to the exact day, but you might be able to get it within 5-10 years.
okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I noticed like those codes on the back of the pictures, and
Yeah.
I'm like, what does that mean? There's like no date per se. It's just some random or okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but like, I'm sure you've seen black and white photos that have like a raggedy edge cut.
yes.
That's done during a specific time period.
Oh, thank you. Well, that changes everything.
Yeah, so there are ways to do it.
Or there's some with pictures with like a white border, with maybe a
Mhm.
little number down in the
Yep.
middle.
All those are clues. It's just a matter of deciphering them.
Well, I guess we're going to have another conversation. So what have been some of the most rewarding moments of your work as a memory preservationist? Sorry.
Probably the most significant one was the Vietnam experience.
Yes, that just blows my mind. I'm sorry.
That was one of the most inspiring ones for me. I work a lot with people from World War II
Mm,
and get all kinds of videos and things that are very interesting. It's interesting when if you're on my podcast or you get or you work with me for videos, that the World War II things that I've seen, you understand it from what you were taught from the 5,000-foot level.
right.
But to see somebody who was actually there and you maybe actually witnessed when the statue of Iwo Jima was created, or with the image that created it,
Mm,
creates a whole nother level of emotion and inspiration.
oh, definitely.
Of the Iwo Jima Memorial in DC is what I'm referring to,
Okay.
where they're putting the flag in the ground and everything else.
Yes. Right. That to be there and to have witnessed that would have been
Oh,
incredible. Just as an aside, just as an my father and I went on a bomb group tour and with 3 other veterans. We went to France and England, and the woman that designed the tour's father and another woman on the tour, both their fathers were pilots and they were killed during the war. But it was so amazing just to see World War II through their eyes. It was just so powerful. There was one veteran who I guess scooped up some sand from Normandy, and then we went to England to the American cemetery there, and I guess there was a fallen comrade, and he was just putting like the sand on the cross, and it was just like, oh my goodness, just to see how powerful it was for him, but then just to be a witness to it was really amazing. Okay.
And I guess one of the things from that era you have to remember is that when people went to war then came back, they were different, obviously. And this was way before PTSD was diagnosed. So it's interesting to see, sad, but it's interesting to see the differences between when they left and when they come back.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It would have been interesting to see how my father had changed if I had grown up in his generation.
And I find a lot of people they don't talk about it.
They don't.
And that's understandable. I can't even imagine the memories that they have, and they just don't want to relive. I'm sure they're horrific.
Oh, I'm sure. My father was in the Army Air Corps, and he was the top of the flight engineer. And I just can't imagine what the 10 people on his plane must have witnessed, especially at times when they probably couldn't see through the smoke and all the flak and everything. So, yeah, I can appreciate my father's viewpoint. He really didn't share much at all. And it would have been nice to have had more of his memory of the past, of when it would have.
Why,
Yeah,
and this is why legacies and memories are so important.
I agree. Totally. So, how do you hope your work will impact the wider conversation around memory preservation and visual storytelling?
Everybody's got a story to tell.
Right.
Man, woman, child, whether you're Anne Frank, who's extremely inspirational, or even a service dog who helps out the vets or the handicapped. Everybody's got a story to tell, and they're all inspirational. Everybody's overcome a challenge. So I'm looking to capture the perseverance, tenacity, and the ability to change, and document that for for people who have these incredible stories, because they need to be told.
I agree. I think any personal obstacle that you overcome, or an event that you've lived through, or events that you lived through, are really powerful, because it's those people who inspire others.
Absolutely.
Versus someone that, has a disability or some other challenge and doesn't rise to the occasion to do their best based on whatever experience or disability they have. I hope that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. But everybody has it in them to make an impact, to make a change. I've seen where dogs have had a leg amputated, and they adapt. Life goes on. So I mean, there's just so many stories of inspiration, and it's that I'm looking to capture and document for people, so they can share those stories of inspiration and tenacity with their loved ones and with others.
That's really remarkable. I really appreciate your efforts in
Thank you.
wanting to capture all of those memories, because it's really important, not only for people now, but people that will want to know in the future. So what an incredible legacy you're providing
Thank
for
you.
not only for a family, but for the culture as well.
Thank you.
So in closing, Jeff, can you give our audience 3 takeaways from our discussion today about preserving memories and making sure that those legacies are passed down to future generations?
Sure. 1, it's never too late to start.
Great. Mm-hmm.
And if you do, maybe you don't know all the answers. Nobody knows all the answers. But you can perhaps bond with family and relatives, or rekindle those relationships with family and relatives,
Mm-hmm.
and learn stories to capture them.
Mm.
There are no boundaries. There are no set rules for doing this. So use your creativity. Most of all, enjoy it. But perhaps the most important that I'll dwell on is the fact that when you're saving your memories, or you're going through everything, don't reminisce over each picture. There'll be plenty of time for that later.
Okay.
So just separate it out, or you might want to start by getting everything together, getting rid of any duplicates.
Right.
Get rid of every picture of nature that's not meaningful to you, or people you don't know, to help narrow down the process. And there's no time frame on it. So don't overwhelm yourself thinking you have this humongous task. Break it out into steps, into phases.
Okay.
Some tidbits of advice.
Thank you. I hear that you have a free offer for our audience today. Can you share with our audience what that is?
I could if I remember it.
Okay, Jeff.
I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I send that to you by any chance?
Yes, you did. Let me see.
I'll let
it's
you
like
read it, because
Okay.
I don't want to misquote myself.
Well, let me pull that up for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How long have you been doing your entrepreneurial business?
Well, I opened up the company about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And then my company being My Digital Memories, and then about 3 weeks ago, I started my podcast, Echoes Across Time.
Okay.
Because as you know, memories and inspirational stories aren't limited to videos, pictures, and audio. They're also done by verbal stories. I mean, stories have been a keepsake going back to stone carvings, going back to hieroglyphics. So over the millennium, we've evolved into better ways of capturing and preserving those stories.
Correct. Okay. And what's the next medium that you see coming down the horizon?
Wow, the next medium. Maybe, I don't know how far along we've progressed, but sometime perhaps in the near future, we might be able to do holograms and three-dimensional images.
You offer to digitize one of your old VHS tapes of 25 years of your cherished photos or slides to music for free.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So you're going to create holograms now for the next generation.
I'm not, no. That's potentially something that's coming in the not so distant future.
Okay.
But that's way beyond my capability at this point. At this point.
I'm sure you'll find a way to do it, Jeff. I'm sure. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing this incredible wealth of information regarding how to keep and create a family legacy. I think it's really important. I know that I went back a few years ago, and what my mother didn't do, I attempted to do. And so it's just amazing how much those memories mean to me. So, yeah. So thank you for doing that, Jeff.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for listening to the Caregiver Cast today. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. Get involved with the show. Send your email to mpetrusi2002@gmail.com. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Caregiver Cast.